Okay, so I'm just going to show you a couple of the more complicated or unusual stitches which are in my Twinkle and Spark cowl, which is just here. So we've got the bow stitch, which is this one here, where you've got 3 loops that you create across the front of your work, and then you sort of loop them all together in one stitch up here. And I'll also show you the sparkle stitch. Let's see if I can get a clear one to show you, which is just here. So with that one, you pull up 3 different loops from the same stitch, which is a couple of rows below. So I will show you the bow stitch first, because that's the one that you come across first in the pattern, and then I'll move on to the other one. Okay, so I'll just leave that there for reference, and we'll move on to the bow stitch. So I've just got a little just a little swatch here that I've got just so that I can show you, because I didn't film it when I was knitting the actual sample. Right, so I'll just knit to somewhere in the middle, and then the first step is you have to slip 5 stitches with the yarn in front. So you just bring the yarn to the front of your work and you slip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, and then you're going to pull that strand across and back, and then I'll knit a couple more stitches, and you'll then see so you have a little strand here, and you have to make sure not to pull it too tight, otherwise it'll bunch up the work, your other stitches in the middle, but equally don't have it too loose. So about here, about that sort of tension, I would say is good. So I will just skip forward to do the next one. Okay, so I'm just about to do the second slip 5 with yarn in front, and I'll just get just get to that bit, and then you're going to bring the yarn forward and slip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just move the yarn to the back, and then just carry on. So you see we now have 2. So I will skip forward until the point where we've got 3 of those, and then I'll show you what we do next to create the bow. Okay, so I've skipped ahead, and we are now just at the point where you've got 3 strands across, and you have to knit until you reach the middle of the 5 that you've been slipping. So let me just show you what I mean, because I find it's easier to show than to say. So you do this is your first one, which you would have been slipping. So you knit 1, you knit the second one, then your third one, you've got to take your needle underneath the 3 loops. So you're still at the front of your work, your needle is just underneath these 3 loops here. Then you knit this stitch as you would, you're still under the loops, and you've pulled through your next stitch, and if it helps you can use your finger to hold on to that, and then you've got to bring the needle back under the 3 loops, and you can then take that stitch off your left needle, and then you've got your bow. Okay, so then you just carry on knitting, and it's after the next row where you do just knit across that it then starts to look more like the bow. So let me just and with blocking as well, they do tend to even out a little bit more. Let me skip forward to the next row and then you'll see what I mean about it looking a bit better after that one. Okay, so I've now knit a further row in stockinette, and you can see it's come together a bit more like the bow shape. So that is the bow stitch. I will now move on to the sparkle stitch, which is this one here. That one looks a bit better. So that was the bow stitch, and then now I'll show you the sparkle stitch. Okay, so for the sparkle stitch, you'll be going to put your right hand needle into the 3rd stitch below the 2nd stitch on your left hand needle. So you're going to go 3 rows below the 2nd stitch on your left hand needle. So this is the 2nd stitch on your left hand needle, and you'll go 1, 2, 3. So what we're going to do is this stitch here. You're just going to take your right hand needle, put it through the back of that stitch, then you're going to loop the yarn around, and with it still looped around, you're going to pull it through. So you've pulled through a loop here, and that is just going to stay on your needle until the next row where you are going to be knitting 2 together. So that will be increasing on this row, and that's absolutely fine. So you've pulled through a loop, and then you've got to knit the next 2 stitches, and then you're going to go back into that same stitch where you pulled out the first loop, and you're going to pull through a 2nd. So you go through, you wrap the yarn around, and then you pull it back through. So now you've pulled up 2 loops in total, but they're separated by these stitches here. Does that make sense? And then you've got to knit 2 further stitches. Okay. And then we've got 1 more loop which we need to pull through that same stitch, and I actually find it easier to use the other needle for this one. So I use the left needle and I put that through, and I then wrap, oops, this bit is a little bit fiddly. I then wrap the yarn around there, and I pull that through. Sorry, that's just the dog sniffing. Yes, I've got it on the left hand needle, the loop, and I just transfer it over, twisting it back round to the same way as the others. So you've got 3 loops, each separated by 2 knit stitches. So you've increased 3 doing 1 sparkle stitch. And then once you've done the 3rd loop, you do just carry on knitting until you get to your next sparkle stitch. And I will just skip forward to the next row and you can see what we do with those extra stitches then. Okay, so we're on to the next row. Oops. Just make sure I've got enough yarn for this bit. Okay, so you knit until the first 1 stitch before your first loop. So I've just got 2 more to knit here. Okay, and then we're going to knit this first loop together with that stitch there. So you do, oops, a knit 2 together, and then you knit 1 on its own, and then the second loop you knit 2 together, and then you knit 1, and then the last loop is just here, and you're going to knit it 2 together with there. Okay, and there you are. That is the sparkle stitch. I'll just carry on a few stitches, then you can see it properly. Okay, so that is what your sparkle stitch should look like after you've just done the second row. And that one, it is fairly simple, it's just that 3rd loop I found quite fiddly to pull through, but I find it helps if you use the other needle to do that and then just transfer it over. Okay, so that is how you knit the bow stitch and the sparkle stitch. I hope you find this helpful when knitting the pattern. Feel free to let me know if there's anything else you would like me to clarify. You can either send me a message or just comment down below. So yeah, hope you enjoy the pattern.